Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the third edition of the African Startup Conference. This is a conference that has been going on for 3 years now, and it follows through with the principal objectives of the previous year, reinforcing and building a proper ecosystem for innovation in Africa. Today, I am proud to be in the presence of a very, very, very intelligent man, a man who's well-traveled, a professor in his own right. Allow me to introduce to you Adam Sulkowski.
Brilliantly pronounced. Thank you for that warm introduction. It's great to be in Algiers.
Okay, so Adam Sulkowski is a well-traveled man. He's been to over 170 countries around the world. He's well-published with over 50 publications under his belt in business law and sustainability. He is also a professor in Babson College.
That's right, Babson College. Shout out to my colleagues at Babson College and all our students and alumni around the world. Greetings from Algiers, amazing Algiers.
He is also a publisher of this new book I'm about to introduce.
Actually, that book is the old one. There are 2 new volumes coming out in the coming few months. And so be on the lookout for Extreme Entrepreneurship, volumes 2 and 3. And so this one actually has been around for 3 years and is available online if you search for it. It's available on Amazon and other fine stores. I want to say stores, other fine venues or platforms for buying books online. There's also, I have a YouTube channel by the same name, Extreme Entrepreneurship.
Basically, it's available everywhere, and you would do well to find him on YouTube. But before we get into the book, I would like you to tell us a bit more. I'm sure I missed a lot of things, you know.
You didn't. The intro was pretty comprehensive. I think people might be wondering about my motivations. What makes somebody travel at this count but to about 172 countries? What motivates story gathering? What motivates leaving a comfortable office in a comfortable city to go all over the world? And I find it exciting and rewarding. I find that meeting people like you, by the way, the person asking questions in this interview has a story to tell as well. Finding people's stories and sharing them is a source of joy. It's related to what I do, which I have to teach law to business students. So if I can find a cool, interesting story that illustrates a universal idea, well, then I'm doing my job as a teacher. Sometimes it helps inform my research, my academic writing. So the motivation for travel is not just purely tourism. Actually, I sometimes fail to do the tourist things in a country because I'm meeting people in a conference like this or on the street or by luck and interviewing new business founders. How are they doing something creative in a challenging environment? And that's, again, rewarding. It helps me in the classroom. It helps me as a researcher. And hopefully it also helps uncover, just like you are uncovering, interesting stories that people deserve to know.
Oh, well, thank you so much. This interview isn't supposed to be about me. We're focused on you today.
That's fascinating.
So speaking on the African Startup Conference, we are in the 3rd edition. What brings you here?
Well, so this is often how finding stories works, and I wonder whether you guys as journalists experience this too. I met somebody who's an Algerian entrepreneur at a Paris startup event, and he asked if I'd ever been to Algeria, and I said, it's one of the last 10 countries in Africa that I haven't been to. I asked when's a good time to visit. He goes, well, if you're into gathering stories, we have this tech startup event, and that's the time to visit because you have entrepreneurs, you have ministers, you have the people in government, investors also, that help support entrepreneurs, and you have the entrepreneurs themselves. So that's why I'm here. I got invited. It was strongly, warmly suggested, and I have no regrets.
Okay, now going on to your book, Extreme Entrepreneurship, Inspiring Life and Business Lessons from entrepreneurs and startups around the world. So, can you tell us more about this book? Well, you told us you travel a lot to experience the stories and the life of entrepreneurs, but can you give us more details as to what we should look forward to in this book?
Well, so there are lessons. I've tried to pull out lessons and highlight the lessons that you can use whoever you are, whatever you're doing, anywhere in the world. Because I think if you're able to build something like a solar-powered mini-grid in Madagascar, if you're able to build during a civil war a creative school that helps severely autistic people and people with other conditions actually become independent, productive, and happy. Those are very difficult things to do. They might be more difficult than the classic stories of successful entrepreneurs even that populate bookstores, right? That's why I thought these stories were so interesting, is that if you want to see true creativity and true challenges and people overcoming them, go to a place where things are more difficult. Now, what's an example of those universal lessons? You ask what can people expect? So universal lessons, you can expect interesting, just human stories. These are not dry business cases. They're stories about a human being who overcomes challenges with the help of other people. And so some of the common lessons, common themes, these people tend to listen. They tend to form relationships. They tend to be much more optimistic than I think a lot of us would be, or definitely than I am some days. So it's fascinating to watch these people and then share what makes things work for them in their specific case, but then also what's universal, what's generalizable. So relationships, starting before you have a complete plan so you can at least test early ideas and figure out what works, what doesn't work. Those are universal themes. Like all great stories, sometimes the themes have appeared elsewhere, but it's something's refreshing and you see them with fresh eyes to see them in a fresh story.
So basically, the book explores the grassroots lives of people that are starting businesses within challenging areas. Challenges are different from places to places, I understand that. And this book puts a fresh perspective on people you might find similarities with. We often look at these famous businessmen and often want to emulate their lives, but it seems so grandiose and complicated. But from the first few pages I've read, it's interesting. We have one here from Peru, a pioneering school for the differently enabled. And it was built through COVID and war times as well.
Well, actually, so thanks for the opportunity to clarify. That's the story I was telling about. Somebody built a school for people that were written off completely as not even fully human. Their own families would keep them sometimes naked and tied up, and sometimes even in cages because they were self-harming. So if you can imagine somebody sent as punishment into the slums of Peru during a civil war. Liliana Mayo, if you're ever watched this or listening, regards from Algiers. Dr. Liliana Mayo, before she was a doctor, she was a young student, went to those slums as punishment for irritating a professor with too many questions. And let me clarify, this is the thing that I wanted to clarify about what you just said. True, she built her school during a civil war. The irony is that because she formed her school as a nonprofit, even though she was creating all these benefits, she eventually got a doctorate. Eventually, I think it's somewhere more than 15,000, 17,000 families have been helped through her work. Can you believe that with all the benefits she generated for society and the banks that used to hire her former students, the pandemic actually caused some of those same banks to no longer give donations. So she was begging, and so it's good that you highlight that crisis, because I think it's an opportunity to highlight a few things. Just because you've sort of begun to make it and you have a system that works, a product or a service that works, you still might get hit by something that you didn't see coming. And in this case, it was their donors abandoning them and not giving them enough money to keep going fully during the pandemic. And these are the very same institutions that were benefiting from her helping to coach from a young age people to be bank employees, even though they had these conditions. So that's also an opportunity to clarify of why these stories are useful as a teaching device, if my students ever see this or hear it. We're supposedly the number one entrepreneurship school, and I'm supposed to teach you law if you're my student. Well, the reason this is the first chapter is that it should provoke thoughts about what she could have done differently, not what's right or wrong, but a different option. Instead of forming a charity, she could have done two things. First of all, used intellectual property tools to try to exclude others from using her discoveries and her methods. And then you can selectively license out, share your knowledge through a licensing agreement, which makes others, especially if you're selling the idea in a rich country, you can ask for more money, right, to keep your institution going as a business instead of a charity. What if she'd also formed it as a for-profit company, not a charity? What if crazier things have happened. What if she formed a Delaware company the way many African startups do, so that there's that potential maybe one day that you go public. Well, and then think about this. During the pandemic, the time that her donors stopped giving money, her discoveries about how to homeschool, collaborating with parents to homeschool a child, during the pandemic, that was worth gold. Everybody, I know I work in education, everybody I knew was panicking. How do we teach children at home? How do we work with parents to educate? How do we teach over the internet? Liliana and her team had figured that out many years ago. So thank you for the opportunity to highlight why these are sometimes useful for teaching big ideas that relate to law and business. It's not just good human stories, but it should cause you to think, okay, here's what I can copy. Here's what's brilliant about this person. But also, if you're in my class, we're going to use it to ask, just like a good case study, what could you have done using legal tools, contracts, intellectual property, business formation, how you employ people, to run this as a for-profit company, so that actually the pandemic, rather than almost killing you as a business, could actually increase demand for your service. I hope that's clear.
Yeah, no, that's very clear. So just continuing off this tangent, you've been to over 170 countries. 46 of those are African. Yeah.
About 46, yeah. Out of 54 African countries. These are several questions in one, so I'll just ask them once and for all. So I want to ask you, what are the peculiar observations you've made in visiting these African countries and observing these businesses grow or start up? What are the challenges that these businesses face, African businesses face, and what do you think are what advice would you give to startups in Africa? New entrepreneurs? That is a lot of questions.
Yeah, I know.
And there's going to be a million answers that have some truth to them. So that whatever I say next is not going to tell the whole truth about this massive continent with such a massive population spread over 54 countries that have their own histories, cultures, religions, languages, foreign influences. So with that, after getting that out of the way, here are the commonalities I see. I will quote others who have even deeper experience than I do, who live here and fund and take risks or start these companies or just observe them, that the bigger the challenge, the bigger the opportunity. Okay. There is a reason that somebody like Elon Musk, love him or hate him, has managed to, by last count, be worth a lot of money, is because the problems that he decided to tackle or try to solve are big problems. Now, the thing is, you don't need to be a white guy in Silicon Valley. I'm convinced, because I can give some examples. There are plenty of challenges that are enormous on this continent. For example, 500 million people have to travel to see a doctor. Less than 2% of Africans have health insurance. People will die on the way to see a doctor in many countries. You know this, you're a doctor.
Yeah, very true. But I think I just want to highlight something. Health insurance is a huge problem in my country. We don't have lately our national health insurance scheme lacks. We don't have the basic funding to treat just common illnesses. But as compared, so I want to see that comparison. You've been to several countries, right? On this topic, like I take Algeria as a sample. They have something called CNAS, which is an insurance. Yeah, it does work better here. But what do you think is the difference? Like I think you're going to answer. You're going to talk about that. So sorry for cutting you off.
No. I think that it's invaluable what you just said, which is that what I say at the very beginning, that whatever I say next is not going to be the total truth, and it's not going to be true of every place and every context. But in generalities, in broad generalities, outside of a country that has a system like Algeria's, these truths have been repeated enough times from different sources that I believe them, and from seeing it with my own eyes, let's take the example of Waspito, right? It's a startup founded by Jean Lobet. You can find an interview with him, actually a whole playlist of interviews with him on my channel. Zuri Health, shout out to my friends at Zuri Health. What's interesting is actually one of the driving co-founders is originally from Nigeria, I believe, but I'm pretty sure that they're based out of Kenya, along with the other two co-founders. And in both cases, it was personal tragedy. that caused people to really invest time in finding solutions to expand access to healthcare. And to repeat the problem, roughly 500 million people on this continent make special trips. So it's telehealth is an example of an area where multiple startups have figured out how to, at a low price, instantly or very rapidly connect a healthcare provider with a patient, which turns out, even if the patient pays $2, $3, is cheaper than the income they'd lose in the trip to see a doctor. 60% in the case of Waspito of initial concerns are resolved during a brief online meeting. Okay. And then the doctors make some extra money too. So that's an example of building a platform that can solve a massive problem, create some money so that the company can keep going. It's financially self-sustaining. Okay. And there are multiple examples in multiple countries that are approaching the problem in multiple ways. But the commonality is the bigger the problem, the bigger the opportunity. And the startups that are here are proving that. Okay, so rapid fire, because we you wanted advice too. Yeah, we lack time. So solution. Find solutions for find a problem, and then listen to stakeholders. Listen to a lot, gather data, and immediately start testing ideas. I was just talking to somebody who started. I'm going to get the name slightly wrong. It's an app that helps waste pickers get a more fair price, even for trash that they collect. So if you understand a problem, if you listen to different stakeholders, if you share your vision and you iterate solutions, you might come up with a solution that actually creates a lot of value, both financially, solves a problem, but also makes money for you, such that you're not begging for money, but rather can financially self-sustain. Some of these companies I've mentioned are financially self-sustaining, and
yeah, but you're talking about self-sustaining. But I think what African entrepreneurs face the most is financing.
I thought you'd get into that.
Yeah,
that's changing a bit. There's now. Literally, that was just shown at Cape Town at Africa Arena. So, Christoph, thank you for that conference. They were showing that, there's there's a drop in funding for startups in the last 2 years. But compared to 10 years ago, it's many orders. It's like an order of magnitude or more bigger. It used to be less, like 27 million going. It was some absurdly small amount. And now, at least, they count it in the billions.
But the market, though, when we're talking about niche, we're talking about markets. A lot of.
Well, is mobile payments a niche?
No, but we're talking about products for the clients.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of Africans that are desensitized to local products. They would rather prefer Western products. I feel like that's a huge challenge. So even if you have a product, the preference to take the foreign product is more enticing to.
If it comes to a consumer product, consumer electronics, for example, there might not even be an African alternative. And I completely agree with you. People will see the Apple logo, and everywhere on the planet, people are irrationally enamored with some Western brands, if you want to call them a Western brand. On the other hand, I'm sorry, but I've seen enough solutions. By the way, I think it's Itaka, the one that is the app for waste pickers that helps them make more money by creating a fairer price, so that the middlemen don't take as much money from transactions. I beg to differ. I think that there's the classic example that even people on the other side of the world have heard about, M-Pesa, right?
Yes.
Where people have developed a solution that was African developed for Africans, and now in a place like Cambridge, Massachusetts, where Harvard and MIT and Babson are, that's now used as shorthand for, hey, in Africa they sometimes leapfrog the state of the art. Let me tell you something. Waspito, Jean Lobet and I used his app. And he instantly connected me to a doctor who was on his lunch break, made a few extra dollars by picking up the phone, had it been a medical consultation. And I've seen the product work. I'm convinced of the need because I've done road trips in West Africa. I can see how difficult it is to move. So I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right that in a context of consumer goods, yeah, sure, okay, people are still going to lust for an Apple phone or whatever. But when it comes to the problems that haven't been solved by Western tech, that's where Africans sometimes step up. And now that you have mobile phone penetration, data prices coming down, and when it comes to funding, here's a critical thing that's different from other parts of the world. Some of the biggest players in this market that you have to use, telecommunications companies, right? MTN, I think, is a big one, right? Orange, right? There's a few insurance companies that try to make money, and banks.
Yeah.
They want to have a pipeline on people using their services more, so they sometimes will help a startup. They'll mentor them. They'll provide resources. There's a lot of ventures that are backed by big corporations because the big corporation sees their interests as aligned. And then, what's the exit? How do investors make back their money? How does the startup founder get a reward financially, a payout for starting a company? Well, sometimes they can sell a big chunk of it to somebody like MTN. Okay. So there's solutions. So Ayoba, I think, Cape Town, shout out to Kino and his people there. And I think Andrew was the name of the person I interviewed there. Anyways, the point is, Ayoba is a platform, African-built for Africans, with the backing of MTN, because it's an online platform, right? They're trying to be the African everything app. Maybe you guys want to be on it. And here, the brilliance is that these big corporations that have an interest in you using their service, like mobile data, will help you get started so that you can solve a problem like instant access to health consultations or something like that. And then they might even buy a share later, because they see that, well, we want to invest in that business because we want to have a financial stake. They've proven that this model works as a money-making machine. Okay. So it's a very funny ecosystem that way. There are challenges in taking a company public, but there are people like Ben, I believe, in Cape Town, whom I met. I forget the name of the platform, but different people are working on different ideas to solve the different challenges that still remain. Like, how do you exit an early-stage investment? What I've seen so far is, look, hey, maybe things won't be completely solved. Maybe things will get. It's actually, I was about to say, maybe things could get worse, but I don't believe it. Given these events I go to, but not just the events, if you go and meet an entrepreneur that's actually doing something in the street, somebody that maybe doesn't even have a tech app, somebody like Fatima in her tea company in Gambia, Fatima is showing that you can move up the value chain and not just work in the agricultural sector, but then take it to the next level and process your leaves into tea that you package and sell and capture more of that value. They're foreign people that literally will travel there, pile up their suitcase with their tea, and sell it for more somewhere else. Fatima, good luck. I respect that you recognize that. Now you're figuring out, wait a second. We got to cut a better deal for Fatima here. Okay. How do I get a bigger share of that tea that we're producing? Okay. But that's an example where even if it's not high tech, there's plenty of medium tech. I've seen that in other parts of the world where, a drone-enabled navigation app works better than Google Maps or Apple Maps. So whether you're in Africa or elsewhere in the world, it's sometimes, just keep focused on a problem, listen to input, test an idea. And you don't even need to quit your main job, just like you. I know, but this is an example. You're a case in point of what I've seen, which is people maybe not leaving their day job, not quitting everything, but iterating on the side, and sometimes like Jean Lobé of Waspito, actually quitting a good job because the dream is so convincing to him. And God bless him, and God bless other people like that are doing amazing work.
So sorry if we are out of time. We have been engulfed in this interview. You heard it from him here. We heard it from him here first. Do not give up. There's hope. He's given examples. Even if you believe there's challenges towards your business, towards your startup, do not give up, because there's solutions within. There's solutions. People are making it work. He said from 10 years ago to now, the investment landscape has changed.
It's gone up a lot. And one more thing. 10, 15 years ago, there weren't venture capitalists like Launch Africa. And there's plenty of others like that. But I want to thank Zach and Junaid and Margaret and everybody on their team. They are one of the vehicles, if you are interested in investing in Africa, they are one of the ways that you can invest, even if you're on the other side of the world. If you're somebody looking for funding, go to events like this, reach out to universities. There are people all over the place that are wanting to help. And it's just a question of if, when, and how. If something doesn't work the first time, keep trying, keep networking, and who knows, maybe there could be probably 1,000 more awesome stories waiting to happen.
Thank you so much, Adam Sulkowski. Get his book. Thank you so much for staying.
To the YouTube channel.
Yes, stay tuned to Ifrikya FM. Stay tuned to Ifrikya FM. And the voice of Africa. Say Ifrikya FM.
The voice of Africa. Can I say it? It's
Ifrikya?
Ifrikya.
Yeah.
Ifrikya.
FM.
Ifrikya. Ifrikya?
FM.
FM.
The voice of Africa.
The voice of Africa. Listen to no other.